You know what's crazy? The Orlando Magic currently have 6 players who are top 10 picks across numerous draft classes. And yet, the idea that they can rebuild their team again? I'm not sure, especially with their track record. In fact, in the last decade, the Magic have had more picks in the top 10 of the draft than any other team in the NBA, including their own picks and picks they've acquired from other teams. Yet in that span, which coincides with Dwight Howard's departure, they've won a total of 2 playoff games, and only had 1 season with a winning record. However, nobody criticizes them as much as, let's say, the Kings, for example. They get all the flack. The Magic, in my opinion, have squandered far more talent than the Kings have. Plus, compared to other teams that are at the bottom of the standings, like the Thunder and Rockets, these teams have an absurd number of future draft picks, while the Magic, they've got a few, but not much. Now, they do have some assets though, mainly a bunch of young players who still have a chance to grow, but we don't know if any of them have the it factor to lead a franchise. The future of this team is a complete mystery. We don't even know what the roster will look like a few years from now. For all we know, they could blow it up again if things don't go right. Anyway, how's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today let's talk about how miserable the Orlando Magic are, and how they got here in the first place. But also, what does the future hold? Are there any bright spots? Are there any players worth keeping for the long haul? Alright, let's get started. 2015 to 2018, the worst decisions ever. Let's rewind a bit and do a quick summary of all the horrific choices they've made. In the 2014 to 15 season, this is what their roster looked like. Not bad, huh? Very young, very athletic, with a ton of potential. The team didn't win many games, but this was the start of a brand new era for the Magic. Then, the issues started after this season. From 2015 to 2018, the Orlando Magic had arguably the worst 4-year stretch in recent NBA history, in terms of draft picks and transactions. In fact, it's one of the worst 4-year stretches in history of any professional sports team. Literally every single decision they made was horrible. When you have a young core like this, the worst thing that could happen is the team's inability to build around them. 2015 to 2018 were the most important years for them, so the front office can get players who can complement them, so they can grow together. In the 2015 draft, they took Mario Hezonja. Out of all the busts in the top 10 of that class, Hezonja was the biggest one, and he fell out of the NBA very quickly. Due to having a bad relationship with Coach Skiles, GM Rob Hennigan traded away Tobias Harris a few months after. By the 2016 draft, they made a good choice in selecting Sabonis with the 8th pick, but then they packaged him in one of the worst trades of the decade. Oladipo and Sabonis for Serge Ibaka, who stayed for half a season before demanding to get the hell out of there. In theory, the logic for this trade was that the Magic preferred to build around Vucevic, and getting Ibaka, a stretch 4 who can defend quite well, it should have been a good match. It was for a little bit, but they didn't consider that Ibaka was not going to stay on a losing team. After playing for a contender in OKC for so long, he wasn't used to playing for a bad team. Some also believed that Rob Hennigan's job was on the hot seat, and the ownership told him if he didn't make the playoffs, he'd get fired. This move was a last-ditch attempt to do that, which, of course, failed, and he got fired anyway. In the 2017 draft, they took Jonathan Isaac, who's always injured and prefers spending most of his time in church. At the 2018 deadline, they gave away Elfrid Payton for a measly second-round pick, even though he was having the best season of his career. They just didn't want to pay him, but still, you couldn't get anything more than that. In the 2018 draft, they took Mo Bamba, a guy with insane physical measurements, and was considered a project. It wasn't a terrible pick as he was projected to go around that spot anyway, but he has yet to develop into the Rudy Gobert type player we expected. It was just a horrendous 4-year stretch. They killed the young core they were supposed to build around, and started over from scratch with a bunch of young guys with a very questionable future. The Magic realized this too. They knew they wasted away their most crucial years of rebuilding, and decided to blow it up again at the 2021 deadline. Gordon, Vucevic, and Fournier all got traded away. Picking up some undesirables. In recent times, the Magic have gone down a different path of rebuilding compared to other teams. Like I mentioned earlier, while they have acquired some additional future picks, they're not amassing a huge number of them like OKC or Houston. Instead, they've focused on acquiring young players who their previous team gave up on, most of whom, at one point in their lives, were regarded as having a very high ceiling. Among these guys include Markelle Fultz, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, and even Bol Bol. Wendell was definitely the most interesting pickup. While he didn't have a great time in Chicago, this change of scenery has revitalized his game, and he exemplifies the skills and attitude the draft scouts used to praise him for. Magic president Jeff Weltman had this to say about him. "I think you can tell a lot about Wendell Carter by the way he plays. He's a worker. He's a guy that cares about his teammates. He's about everything that we want to be about going forward." Harris was also a pickup from Denver. At one point, it looked like him and Murray would be the backcourt of the future for the Nuggets. But because of some injuries and his regressing play, they gave up on him. He's not as good as he once was, but he's trying to catch his stride. Markelle Fultz was another prospect who spent most of his years rehabbing from nerve damage due to a shoulder injury. That was the reason he struggled so much coming into the NBA. The dude lost the ability to shoot. Since the Sixers were ready to contend, they had no time to wait for him to recover. When the Magic acquired him, usually there'd be a lot of fanfare if you get the #1 pick of a previous draft. But at that point, everyone assumed his career was basically over. However, prior to his knee injury, Fultz was actually making strides in his game. Of course, he won't ever live up to his #1 pick potential, but just the chance that he could tap into his pool of talent, it was a chance the Magic were willing to take. And they offered him a 3-year, $50 million contract because they believed in him that much. Sadly, if it wasn't for his torn ACL, maybe he could have progressed further. There's still time for that, despite the haters early in his career, all those guys making fun of his jump shot and his shooting form. I'm sure everyone nowadays is rooting for Fultz to succeed. The unspectacular 6th picks. As I mentioned earlier, in back-to-back drafts in 2017 and 2018, the Magic selected Jonathan Isaac and Mo Bamba, two hyper-athletic players who everyone knew were raw prospects. Neither Bamba nor Isaac have showed they're capable of becoming cornerstones of this franchise. Heck, Isaac has been injured for such a long time. Everyone's forgotten about him. Not only that, but he seems to have descended into the conspiracy rabbit hole. Nobody knows what's up with that guy. I mean, the dude drew comparisons to Kevin Durant prior to coming into the NBA. In terms of size, length, athleticism, the all-around ball handling and scoring ability, plus his lanky frame, the comparison was uncanny. The Magic have to be upset with him. Mo Bamba, on the other hand, he was supposed to be a defensive dynamo by now. Except the Magic aren't any better at defense with him on the court than off the court. The numbers back that up. He's not a net positive defensively at all. While he can block shots, he's out of position way too much and his defensive IQ is not good. That Rudy Gobert comparison is looking worse by the day. I don't think Bamba is a complete waste of a pick, cause, he's still playing, at least. But Isaac? Man, that's awful. The bright side. Besides all the catastrophes of their other draft picks, on a positive note, the Magic have accumulated some young guys who look promising. Franz Wagner, Cole Anthony, and Jalen Suggs were their most recent draft selections, and I think the Magic are putting their eggs into this basket. Wagner especially, he's been their most promising young player, and consistently been among the top 5 rookies across the NBA. And among all rookies, he's actually the most efficient at scoring with a 55.6% true shooting percentage as of this video. Diving into the numbers, there's so much that Wagner is doing that makes him look so good. For instance, he's also one of the league's best cutters. According to the NBA's dashboard, he hit 76% of his shots off a cut. That's good for being in the 93rd percentile in the league. His brother, Moritz, is also up there as well, and it's something that they've worked on to perfect together. According to Coach Mosley, he described Franz's development like this. His advantage is that he has his brother. There's a little bit of a learning curve that happens there because the brother is there to give pieces of advice. He played for a phenomenal college coach in Jawan, who gave him some of those keys to what it was going to be like as a pro. That goes a long, long way for a young man walking into his rookie year, so all of those great pieces set him up to strive to continue to be great. Wagner is already one of the best off-ball players in the league at such an early age. This is a skill that's very hard to teach. Some players never learn how to play off the ball and end up seeing their career stagnate. But Wagner has such a great knack for reading the offense and moving without the ball. Even if he doesn't become the primary guy of this franchise, he'll certainly complement whoever does. Combined with Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs hopefully panning out, the Magic have something to look forward to. You couldn't say the same a few years back, where they had no future whatsoever. As bad as they are now, not all hope is lost. They just have to not squander the talent they have now, though that might be a tough thing to ask for, if the past few years were any indication. I'm cheering for them though. Anyway, that's all folks. Where do you foresee the Magic ending up a few years from now? Do you think they can make the playoffs in the near future? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.